Hi everybody. I meant to post this last week and I forgot to, but I still think it's beneficial for you all because I'm going through all of the first drafts of the informative speeches, and so far I think that they're going well. I'll do another general announcement for that, but the thing I forgot to talk about was engagement devices, and that is going to be the topic for this particular lecture. So you're going to need to make space in your speeches for this a little bit. Some of you maybe not, but it really kind of depends. Let's go ahead and look at the screen. All right. Engaging your audience, how to make speeches fun for your audiences, because they should be, right? An audience can be engaged by the information in your presence, but you should work in the content to make sure that you're keeping them engaged. Otherwise, they might zone out. A lot of you, experienced what this was like when you did your cultural speeches. Some of you did put a lot of work into putting those engagement devices in, and some of you did not. And I think we talked about that too as a class. So let's first go into this definition of audience-centeredness. When it comes to creating the engagement devices, I want you to keep one very specific thing in mind. You need to keep the audience foremost in your mind at every step of the speech preparation and presentation process. So you shouldn't just be thinking to yourself, like, what do I like and what's funny to me or what's interesting to me. You should think, what will this particular audience like? We're going to get into more specific demographic analysis in our next speech, the persuasive speech. But for now, the informative speech is just about keeping it light and fun. And so we're going to just, smatter a broad array of different devices for you to use. All right. So let's see if I can move this down. That says how to keep a disinterested audience interested, if you can't quite see it in the screen there. First thing, use examples that your demographic will relate to. And again, this comes to knowing who your audience is. If you feel like your audience is, the demographic is in the age range of 50 to 60 or 70, then the examples that you use will be very different from the examples for an audience who is, 17 to 25. Most of you are in the category of 17 to 25, is my understanding of the demographics. So think about what you like. And then you can be more specific about what you think our class is like. So for example, let's take Game of Thrones as a type of example people might relate to. You might say, this information is a lot like, the Dothraki when they do this thing. And so you might think that you're helping the audience understand your information better by using an example from Game of Thrones, but you got to think about who your audience is and if they actually like Game of Thrones. So that's what I mean by using examples that your audience can actually relate to, if it is actually something that they're into. Another attention device that you should be using is humor, and we talked about this before, but use humor generously whenever you can in your speeches. Some of you are better at this than others, and that's fine. If not, then don't use humor. Use narratives as much as you can. Try to use a story or two in your speech, and yes, this means actually having to delete information to make space for that story, if the story is appropriate, though. Otherwise, don't just use stories just because they should be interesting stories too. Visual aids, which you have to do with the PowerPoint presentation anyway, it's required. But again, I recommend a new image every 20 to 30 seconds. I don't know if I've told you this before in the PowerPoint presentation we talked about, but that's always recommended. Interaction. So this is assuming that this is a live audience. If it's online and it's a video, we will not have that privilege. But interaction comes in a number of ways. You can ask questions of the audience, which we talked about before for beginning your speeches. You can ask your audience to participate. If you've ever seen like a magic show and they say, I need a volunteer, and the volunteer comes up, maybe it's a kid, maybe it's an adult, maybe it's whatever, pulling someone out of the audience normally gets everybody's attention. And then activities, which we used to do when we used to meet face to face. We're having the whole class do something so that they understand your information better. Music. It depends on your capabilities. If you're good at creating videos and editing and editing music into your videos, I'd say go for it. Put a soundtrack to your informative online speech, but make sure it's a good soundtrack. Sometimes people use music with lyrics, which competes with your actual speaking. So it should definitely be instrumental, if anything, but the instrumental, the mood, the emotion of it should match your speech. And I don't recommend using just one song the entire time. Like if you're really into the instrumental for like the Dark Knight soundtrack and it's got a deep, dark vibe going on, or if you're into the instrumental from, I don't know, some uplifting movie, it's just realize that the tone of your speech, it shifts constantly. And so one song, even if it is 5 to 7 minutes long, it's not going to match your speech the entire time. It's going to actually conflict with it at times. So you want to change the music up depending on what it is you're talking about. And you want that shift to happen smoothly. The energy of your own performance is obviously an important part of getting people to stay interested. So how you deliver it does still matter. Sometimes, and this works when we do the group informative, which we're not doing obviously, the groups do scenes or skits to help people understand. It's a little like when you watch, a scenario played out by actors to help people understand something. I don't see this going well if you're doing the speech online, like doing a little scene or skit with yourself. Yeah, I don't know if that works, but maybe, if you feel like it might, then it'll definitely grab my attention. I don't know if it's going to be in a good way, but yeah. Stating the importance of your topic, and this works for introductions only. You know that small section of your introduction called the significance statement, which I never really explained to you specifically, but you all caught onto by reading the sample speeches. You were like, oh, I get what they're doing. They're trying to talk about why this is important to listen to. Sometimes you can start your speech that way if you feel like it's super significant. So you can use that as a 2-in-1. It's an attention device and a significant statement. And you can switch that structure up, which I didn't tell you, but now you know. But this only works for the introductions. I wouldn't use this in the body of the speech. Another thing that only works for the introductions is arousing the curiosity of the audience. You achieve this by giving away details, but not giving away the actual topic. If you've ever seen that Dos Equis commercial where they say, he's an international man of mystery. He can make minute rice in less than a minute. When he does push-ups, the earth moves and not him. Something like that's a Chuck Norris thing. Who is this man? And then you get into the topic reveal. He is blah, blah, blah. So that works really well for when you're introducing a topic. You create mystery about the topic by giving only small details and then leading into the actual topic reveal. You could actually do this again in the body of the speech somewhere when you're introducing a new piece of information or a new idea. So I think that it could work beyond the introduction, but it's something to think about too. What you don't see at the bottom there, it's out of the screen, is, yeah, you can see that now. You need to think of this speech as 50% information and 50% fun. And that means that you do have to make a lot of space for these engagement devices. You have to cut out some of that information that might be a little on the dull side and make space for something that is a story or an example or, you're arousing the curiosity of the audience, etc. You have to make space for the visual aids. Like you have to let people absorb the visual. You can't just show them an image every 5 seconds. It needs to be a little longer than that for them to understand and wrap their head around it. So you have to keep it up there for some time. But wherever your draft is at, especially as I make notes on it, you're going to want to make adjustments and insert these engagement devices. I also wrote on the original draft that the first draft, that you needed to identify the type of device you're using. Now that I've explained these different types of devices here, you should definitely do that for your final draft in the intro and the conclusion and wherever else you're using them in the structure of the speech. All right. Let me know if you have any questions. That's it. Bye.